Zindabad, Zindabad, Murdabad, Murdabad. Ya Ali, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
With one more loud Nari Salawat, I will request you to please move forward. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين مولانا وسيدنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض مولانا حجة ابن الحسن عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم صل على محمد ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الإمام محمد الباقر عليه الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد رحم الله عبدا حبس نفسه علينا. Mu'mineen, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has created this world in a very, very special way. He has created it with wisdom, because He is the all-wise. If Allah is Hakim, Al-Hakim, then definitely His creation will show wisdom. If He is a wise Lord, then His creation will show wisdom, harmony, and that everything works together in a seamless fashion, and everything flows the way it's supposed to flow. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created many, many systems in this world, in this universe. You'll see that, for example, the water system, the rain and the evaporation and all of this happens seamlessly and perfectly. You'll see the animal kingdom behaves perfectly and seamlessly. Everything is where it's supposed to be. One creature eats another creature eats that creature, and the cycle goes on. The birds know where to fly and when to come home and where to build their nests, and when they die, the new generation is there, and everything ticks over. The oceans are another whole world of Allah's wisdom that we haven't even explored yet properly, but the oceans hold even more of the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is where it's supposed to be. Everything is acting in obedience to the command of God. Allah places it and they are obedient and they flow accordingly. Everything knows its role, everything knows its capacity, everything knows its obedience and submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we zoom in, then even on the most subatomic level, particles and atoms and neutrons and electrons and whatever there is smaller than that, all behave, vibrate, go round and round, move according to the tune of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Zoom out and take the biggest things that we know in existence, the planets, the solar system, the stars, the galaxies, the billions and trillions of stars, all of them behaving the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to behave. Every single thing is in harmony. Every single thing is following the course which Allah has set for it. Everything is in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La shamsu yambaghi laha an tudrika al-qamar wa la laylu sabiqun nahar kullun fi falakin yasbahun. Neither does the night overtake the day, nor does the day overtake the night. Everything kullun fi falakin yasbahun. Everything is where it's supposed to be, exactly in its system and in its place, swimming and traveling along the path that Allah has decreed. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. There is no thing, there is not even one thing that Allah has created except that it glorifies Him. وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. Maybe you don't understand their tasbih. Otherwise, every single thing that you can think of, everything you can see, these so-called inanimate objects, are all glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, into this mix of atoms, electrons, neutrons, subatomic, to the galaxies and stars and planets on the grandest level, into this mix we introduce insan. With his intellect and with his free will, insan becomes the first creature of Allah that is willing to go against this order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single thing in this universe is flowing one way, in harmony. Everything is working according to the plan and the order and the creation of Allah. Everything, every animal, every species, every insect, the winds, the rains, the leaves on the trees are all in exactly where they need to be in obedience towards Allah. Now insan comes with his intellect and his free will, and he becomes the first creature to say, I am willing to go against the laws of Allah. So now what happens? Think of it like this. Think of it like this. Imagine a river that is flowing with a current, and everything you can imagine is flowing in that direction. Everything is in harmony. Everything is working according to the way it should. And we have a lovely, beautiful river, an ecosystem which is working together. All of a sudden, one fish decides to swim against the current. Now what will happen? So when something goes against the system of Allah, and when it goes against the order which Allah decreed, then something has to happen as a reaction. Think about it. When in our bodies, if ever we ingest something that shouldn't be ingested, food goes down the windpipe instead of the food pipe, what happens? The body will convulse and tighten and choke and spit and splutter and cough, but it will get that thing out. A car which is supposed to take petrol, you put diesel, it will jerk and cough and splutter and maybe even break down, but it will have to get that foreign fuel out of it. The same thing happens in this world. When a person goes against all of these laws of Allah, these systems of Allah that are based on submission and obedience, then the world reacts against that person. We might see it as something else. We might think, okay, I missed my namaz, no big deal. But we don't know there are reverberations and repercussions in the fabric of this world. We may think, okay, I did zulm on someone, no big deal. That has set in course some repercussions that will be felt in the fabric of this world. There was a farmer who had a farm outside the holy city of Mashhad. And around the neighboring farms, there was a plague of locusts which were coming and destroying the farms and the produce and the harvest. And he knew that within the next day or two, his farm is next. He went to the great scholar of the time, Ayatollah Sheikh Hassan Ali Nokhudukiye Isfahani. He said to him, Agha, I'm worried. What is going on? I'm worried about my farm. I'm worried about my harvest. That great man of Allah, he put his head down, he was silent for a while, and then he spoke. He said, you know what? You farmers have not been giving your zakat. The zakat which you have not been giving, this is now the manifestation of that. Sometimes it has an effect on the businesses. Sometimes it has an effect on the natural resources. So he said to him, can you give me something? I promise from now on I will pay my zakat. Agha says to him, take this thing. He wrote something, a prayer. He said, here, fold it up. Put it in the corner of your field. But the main thing is start paying your zakat. He says, I promise from now on, if you save me from this, if I'm saved from this, then I'll pay my zakat. And he then reports that I did that. I buried it in the corner of my field. Agha also prayed for me. And that year, not only did the locusts not come to my fields, I produced double the harvest. Whatever you do, whatever we do, there is a reverberation, there is a repercussion, there is an impact which happens. And on the other hand as well, if you reverse this and you look at it from the positive side, then that can happen as well. There was an alim, he reported that he was sent to a particular village to preach and to give lectures. On arrival into the village, the people welcome him and then they share with him. They say, you know what? There's a very, very interesting young man in this village we need to introduce you to. He has some power. He said, okay, what kind of power? He said, he has a Quran. Anything you ask him, he opens the Quran and he gives you the answer. Anything. So he said, okay, this must be something we need to see. What's going on here? So he goes and he meets this young man. And he says to him, I hear you have this gift. He said, yes, Allah has granted me this gift. He said, okay, tell me, when did I arrive? He takes the Quran, opens the Quran, tells him you arrived at this time on today, at this time, blah, blah. He said, okay, maybe he knows how to figure that out. Maybe someone told him. He said, okay, I'll ask you something which I have not told anyone. When am I going to leave? No one knew when he was going to. It was a secret. He kept it to himself. Opens the Quran and tells him, this is when you're going to leave. He says, oh, that's really something special. He asked him a few more questions. Everything he asked him, he gave him the answer. So then he said, give me your Quran, let me see. He gave him the Quran. He said, he flicked through. He said, this is a normal Quran. Normal Quran that we all have. Like, I can't see anything different in this. So he says, tell me, what's the secret? How do you know this information? He says, on one occasion, so he was a laborer and he had this kind of accommodation that you give to, people working on site in building sites. He was a laborer. He said, on one occasion, when I came home, there was a woman in my accommodation and she offered herself to me. I'm a young person, I'm single. But then at that moment, although tempted, I remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I had fear of God. And I somehow managed to, just get her out. And I locked the door and I shut the door behind. And that night in my dream, I saw Rasulullah and Amirul Mu'mineen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Rasulullah says to Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali Jan, what do you think is the reward for this young man who has protected his modesty? What is the reward for someone who protects their iffat and modesty? Ali alayhi salam says, Ya Rasulullah, you know better. Rasulullah says, yes, the gift that I want to give you is this Quran. And he handed me the Quran in my dream. When I woke up, I saw that same Quran on my table. He said, since then, this has been guiding me. Everything is interconnected. This world is built in such a way by God. It is built in such a way by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is all interconnected. Everything we do is interconnected. Never think that something just happens and that's the end of it. It is all interconnected. Sooner or later, the effect will be there. Sometimes it is on a personal level. For example, Hadith says, sometimes a man tells a lie or a woman. Someone tells a lie. Because of that lie, they lose the tawfiq of namaz-e-shab. Because of the loss of tawfiq of namaz-e-shab, their rizq and roji is affected. One thing after another, like a domino effect. Everything we do is interconnected. Now I ask you a question. If everything is interconnected, and even if these, what we call small sins, have their effect, if even the smallest sins, I say small, but it's not small, yeah? Because Amirul Mu'mineen says, don't look at the smallness of the sin. Look at the greatness of the one you are sinning against. So no sin is small, but I hope you get what I mean. If this happens on these kinds of sins, then what would happen when we reject the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Then what happens? if we do these kinds of sins and we feel the reverberations and repercussions, then what is the repercussion of rejecting the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And I tell you, when I say we, I mean the human race. I mean we as people. What did we do with the imams that Allah sent to us? Think. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent 11 imams. Now how did we treat them? We, again, meaning human race, meaning people. How did the people treat the imams? Either they killed them or they poisoned them. Some of them they imprisoned. Some of them they tortured. Some of them, one of them they starved and was made thirsty for 3 days. One of them was poisoned in his liver. One of them was put into prison for 15 years. 2 of them were kept under house arrest. One of them was taken to Iran on false kind of pretenses. How did the human race treat the A'imma alayhimus salam? Can you believe it? Allah will say, I gave you 11 of the best. And I gave you the best of the best of the best. The first one was the best of them. And what did you do? You treated him like that you replaced him with someone like Abu Bakr? Are you serious? I gave you the choicest, the best, the man of Ghadir, the man of Khaybar, the man of Hunain. I gave you the best. You replaced him with that kind of thing? So, the first one you killed in the mosque. The second one you poisoned. The third one you killed brutally in Karbala. All the rest of them you poisoned and you imprisoned and you did all of that. Now my 12th one, now I'm not going to leave it in your hands any longer. Now my 12th one is my Baqiyatullah. Baqiyatullah means the last remnant, the remainder, the last one of Allah. Now this one is special because after him there's no more. The silsila, the sequence of hujjats of Allah is now coming to an end. I gave you 11. Before that I gave you 124,000 prophets. Forget that. Let's just talk about imams. I gave you 11. How did you treat them? Now for the 12th one, I'm not going to take any chances. Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. إِذَا غَضِبَ اللَّهُ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى عَلَى خَلْقِهِ. When Allah wishes to display His anger on people, then what does He do? Nahana an jiwarihim. He withholds us from them. He withholds us from the people when He wants to display His anger. So Azizan Girami, we'll have to admit one thing. We'll have to admit this, that this time which we are living in, which is the time of ghaybat of Imam Zaman, that Imam is withheld from us, then therefore it is the time of the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the time of anger of Allah. It's a very scary concept and prospect, isn't it? That we are living actually because we don't have the biggest bounty of Allah, which is Baqiyatullah, which is Imam Zaman. That is, He is the biggest bounty of Allah. And we are without Him. We are mahroom from Him. Yes, He exists. Yes, He's present in the world, but we don't have access to Him. This has been withheld from us. Why is this the case? What did we do? Dua-e-Nudba. Lam yumtathal amru Rasulillah. The orders of the Prophet were not carried out. Which orders? What did he do? Fil hadeen ba'd al hadeen. You are meant to respect one guide after another, one guide after another. They were meant to come to you. You are meant to respect them, receive them, submit to them, obey them. What did you do? You killed them, imprisoned them, poisoned them. You did not carry out the orders of the Messenger of Allah. Now what happens? As I said, you perform a misdeed, you do a guna, you do a sin, there will be reverberations and repercussions. What happens as a result of rejecting the biggest bounty of Allah, the most beloved of Allah, the thing of Allah that He calls His most beloved, His wali, His representative? What happens? Now you'll see calamities. Hazrat Fatima, salamullahi alayha, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. She has a hadith, honestly, if we open this chapter, which I'm not going to open because we don't have time, but if we open this chapter, then I tell you, it will make us understand what is an Imam. She says, Allah has created the system of Imamah, Amanan min al-furqa, as a safety from disunity. Imamah, if it's given its position, if it's given its proper place, no one will be disunited. Everyone will come together. The fact that we are so disunited, forget the wider Muslim world, Sunnis, Wahhabis, etc. Forget that. Okay, that is there. Within Shias, then within Ithna Asharis. Imagine the disunity. Yes, to a certain extent we are united because we have Ahlul-bayt, but not as it should be. So when you reject the biggest wali of Allah, the biggest ni'mat of Allah, then what can you expect? Let's have a look at this in a bit more depth with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Dua Kumel. What do we recite? Allahumma ghfir liya dhunuba allati tunzilun niqam. Oh Allah, forgive me those sins which draw down adversities. So sins draw down adversities. Oh Allah, forgive me those sins which tughayyirun ni'am. Khudaya, you had given me ni'mat, bounties. My sins turned them from bounties into curses. It was meant to be something to benefit me, but now it's hindering me. How many times is this true? How many times? That the bounty which was meant to take you closer to Allah, actually it's hindering you. Could be your wealth. For some people, wealth is good. For some people, wealth is bad. Is your wealth helping you getting closer to Allah or not? Could be your position, your knowledge. Could be even your family. I don't even want to open that chapter, yeah? Could be even family members, how they impact you. Are they really taking you closer to Allah or taking you away from Allah? Oh Allah, forgive me those things, those sins which block my du'as, tahbisud du'a. Khudaya, I'm beseeching you day and night. Why are my du'as not reaching you? Because you are sinning. You're blocking your own du'as. Forgive me those sins which cut my hopes. Taqta'ur raja. Forgive me those sins which bring down tribulation and trials. Khudaya, why are we so affected? Why are all these calamities happening? Gunah. This is why when anyone ever asks me, and I'm not really qualified to be asked, to be honest, because they ask sometimes, how do we begin the path of spirituality? And I'm not qualified to give any kind of detailed instruction or anything like that. But I give what I think is the most basic and obvious thing, which all the Imams have said as well. I say to them, if you want to start on the path of spirituality, stop sinning. Gunah ne band kari nako. So they follow up usually and they say, no, isn't there some kind of a special zikr or dua we can recite? And I'm like, I wish it would work like that. I wish it would work like that. But the fundamental thing is to stop sinning. Because once you sin, you are that one creature going against the whole tide of Allah's system. Everything else is moving in one way. You are standing like a rebel, like a criminal, like an obstacle, like a bottleneck. What's going to happen? Everything will go against you. Everything will overcome you. Nothing will let you stay there. You're like a foreign object now. So everything conspires against you. So, the sins against Allah, when you avoid those, you can eradicate those, then you can open the channel of grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Imam Zaman can become close to you. Then your du'as will be accepted. Then when you say, for example, Allahumma arinit tal'atar rashida wal ghurratal hamida. Oh Allah, allow me to see the beautiful face of Imam Zaman. Then maybe it will be accepted. Then maybe Hujjat ibn al-Hasan will come. Then maybe Zuhur will happen. So everything we do is very much connected. This world is alive. And therefore, when Imam Zaman does come, may Allah hasten his reappearance, there will be a change in this whole universe. Allow me to share with you a couple of things, and then we finish with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad. First Imam says, when our 12th one makes his stand, the sky will send its rain and the earth will grow its crops. In other words, those barren lands, those places full of drought, where it doesn't rain and nothing grows, all of a sudden they may become fertile. The Holy Prophet says, at the time of the zuhur of Imam Zaman, the birds in their nests, because why? Now the system of Allah is kicking in again. The divine order is being re-established. The birds in their nests and the fish in the sea will rejoice. They will feel a happiness, whatever happiness that kind of happiness is. They will feel a kind of happiness that Hujjat ibn al-Hasan is here and has arrived. Springs will spring forth, rivers will flow, earth will produce double the amount of harvest. Ibn Abbas says the following regarding the verse 61:9, where Allah says that the apostle has been sent with guidance and religion of truth, that he may make this religion prevail over all religions. لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّ. Regarding that verse, Ibn Abbas says, now this is again next level. It won't come in our minds that how can this be? But this is the scene. At the time of the zuhur, the sheep and the wolf, they're arch enemies, yeah? One runs from the other, one chases the other. The sheep and the wolf, the cow and the lion, human beings and even snakes will all be at peace. No one will attack each other. If they do attack each other, it's just like, okay, I understand, I'm your food source, you can eat me. Everything will know its place. Everything will be in harmony, complete and utter harmony. Everything will have this new kind of utopia descend upon it. Another hadith says, at the time of the zuhur, there will be a sense of safety that will descend upon the earth. No thing will endanger another thing. No one would be scared of another thing. Even animals will live amongst people and will not bother them. Wild animals will not behave the way they usually do. The blessings of the sky and the earth will become apparent. The earth will become beautified with its crops, its flowers and its fruits. These will all appear and grow, and kindness and mercy will descend upon the hearts. Look at the scene being presented with the arrival of Imam Zaman. Why? Because the order of Allah has been re-established. He will come as the mercy of God. He will heal this world. One thing which no one, no government, no scientist, no intellectual has been able to really give us an answer to is how do we deal with the climate change and the pollution of this world? No one. We have different ideas, but really everyone is saying this is not going to make much difference. We're still going to be facing all these issues. We're still going to be faced with a world which is warming more than we can handle. Who knows if Hujjat ibn al-Hasan will come and solve all of these things? Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahu Akbar. Allah is great. This Imam of mercy and kindness will produce such an environment on earth that people will feel at peace, at ease, comfort, mercy, kindness. And then the people will obviously follow the Imam. When they see their leader, which is going to be Imam Zaman, behave like this, they will naturally follow suit. They will naturally come in line. We'll discuss this more tomorrow, inshallah. Tomorrow will be a more in-depth picture that I want to paint for you regarding the utopia that will come on earth as a result of Imam Zaman. I call it the Mahdavi heaven. It's not heaven of the hereafter. It will be heaven on earth under the blessed rule of Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. For tonight we remember one of the most painful sacrifices, one of the most dear people to Aba Abdullah and Hazrat Zainab, we remember Hazrat Aliyun al-Akbar. Assalamu alayk, Ya Aba Abdullah.
Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'minin. Sallallahu alayki ya Mawlati Fatimah al-Zahra. Sallallahu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Sallallahu alayka ya Madloom, ya Gharib, ya Shaheed, wa ya Atshan fi Karbala. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussein وعلى أرواح التي حلت بفنائك. All together let your voices reach Karbala. وعلى أرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله عبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر الأهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Brothers and sisters, take your heart to Karbala. Tonight we remember one of the greatest sacrifices of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. We remember his son Akbar, Aliyun al-Akbar. For every mother, their pride is their son. Let us start the musibah of Aliyun al-Akbar with Layla Salamullah alayha. After the battle of Karbala, once all of the ashab of Imam Hussein had been killed, all of the family had been killed, the enemies were not satisfied. What did they do? They began to cut the heads one by one of all of the shuhada. One mal'oon comes, cuts the head of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. Another cuts the head of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. Someone cuts the head of Aliyun al-Akbar. Then once these heads are cut, they raise the heads on spears. They walk with these heads raised upon spears amongst the women and the children. They say that all of the women had certain shuhada they would stay with. They say Zainab Salamullah Ali would stick with the head of Abi Abdullah. Wherever the head of Hussein went, Zainab would follow. And she would stare at the head of Abi Abdullah. Wherever the head of Abbas went, Kulthum would follow and she would stare at the head of Abbas. Wherever the head of Aliyun al-Akbar went, Layla would follow and stare at the head of Aliyun al-Akbar. A time comes where these captives of Ahlul-bayt Salamullah alayhi are taken towards the city of Sham. They enter the city of Sham. Layla is with the head of Aliyun al-Akbar. The ladies are walking through the streets of Sham, and then Layla sees one woman is staring at the head of Aliyun al-Akbar. Layla is a mother. She's wondering, why does this woman look at the face of my son? She waits a few moments. She asks the woman, "Woman, why do you stare at this head on the spear?" The woman replies, "I am praying to Allah that when this boy's head was cut, his mother was not present. For if his mother was present, how would she bear this musibah?" Layla says, "O woman, I am the mother of Aliyun al-Akbar. I saw the head being cut. I saw them raise it on spears." How did Aliyun al-Akbar reach this stage? A time comes on Ashura where all of the ashab of Imam al-Hussein have become shaheed. They've all given their lives and sacrificed their lives for their Imam. They say Aliyun al-Akbar was the first from the Hashemites to give his life, the first from the family to give his life. He approaches his father. He says, "Father, may I go to the battlefield and give my life for you? Abi Abdullah looks at his son. He says, Akbar, you are given permission. Ali al-Akbar enters the tent of Layla to bid farewell. Abi Abdullah narrates something strange. He says Ali al-Akbar would enter the tent and then leave, then again enter the tent and then leave. He called his son Akbar. He said, Ya Ali al-Akbar, come. Why do you keep entering the tent and then you leave and then you enter again? Ali al-Akbar says, I have bid my final farewell to my mother Layla, and then she calls me one last time. She says, Akbar, come, I want to see your face again. Then I leave again. Then Zainab salamullah alayhi calls me. She says, I want to see the face of my nephew one last time. Then Kulthum calls me. Why do they do this? For Ali al-Akbar was kind ashbah an-nas خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. He was the most similar to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi in his appearance, in his character, and in his speech. Whenever somebody wanted to remember Rasulullah, they would call Ali al-Akbar. That Ali al-Akbar looked like the Holy Messenger. Now he is leaving for the battlefield. It is as if Rasulullah is leaving for the battlefield. Finally, Ali al-Akbar is given permission. He mounts on his horse. He starts riding his horse to the battlefield. Then he says, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. I saw my father, Abi Abdullah. I asked him, oh father, why do you follow my horse? He says, you don't know how painful for an elderly man to see his youthful son go to the battle. How painful was it for Abi Abdullah? In the holy city of Karbala, there was an alim who had a dream. In his dream, he was given a gift where he was able to see the state of the body of Abi Abdullah on the day of Ashura. Imam al-Sajjad narrates that, have you seen the size of a dirham coin? Not even the size of a dirham coin was left on the body of Abi Abdullah, not covered in blood. There was so much blood from head to toe on the body of Abi Abdullah. This alim was given the gift to see the body of Hussein on Ashura. He sees the body, he wakes up, he starts to cry about the musibah that befell Abi Abdullah. Later that evening, he gives a majlis, a masa'ib, and he recites what he saw in his dream. He makes the crowd cry for Imam al-Hussein. Again that night, he goes to sleep. This time he sees Abi Abdullah only has 2 marks on his body. He says, Sayyidi, I saw you yesterday. Where have the marks gone? Abu Abdullah replies, when my Shia cry for me. Cry, ya Shia, cry for Abi Abdullah. When my Shia cry for me, it soothes my soul, and the marks of the battle leave my body. The alim says, but Sayyidi, there are still 2 marks on your body. What are these marks? Abi Abdullah says, there is no amount of tears that can remove these marks from my body. The mark on my back is from the arrow into the eye of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. The mark on my chest is from the arrow in the chest of Ali al-Akbar. There is no amount of tears that can remove these marks. Abi Abdullah finally leaves his son. Ali al-Akbar rides out to the battlefield like a brave warrior, for he was trained by Abul Fadl al-Abbas. He calls out as he approaches the enemy, Ana Ali ibn al-Hussein ibn Ali. I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. Nahnu wa baytillahi awla bin Nabi. By the house of Allah we are more deserving of the prophets. تالله لا يحكم فينا ابن الدعي. By Allah, the son of the illegitimate one shall never rule over us. أضرب بالسيف أحمي عن أبي. I strike with my sword defending my father. ضرب غلام هاشمي علوي. A strike from a young man from the Hashemi Alawi household. Ali al-Akbar begins to fight. He kills many of the enemies of Allah. Abi Abdullah, his father, says, I stood on the stirrup of my horse to see whether Akbar is still alive. I saw that Akbar is still alive. In my heart I had a desire. I wished to see his face one last time. What did Hussein do? He says, I went to Layla. I said, Layla, make dua that Abi Abdullah returns one last time. For the dua of a mother is never rejected for her son. What dua did Layla make? Listen to the dua. The dua is heartbreaking. She says, Ilahi bi ghurbati waladi Ali وبعطشه وبوحشته في أرض كربلاء. Oh Allah, by the estrangement of my son Ali, by his thirst and his loneliness in the land of Karbala, وبصبر أبي عبد الله على محنته كما رددت يوسف إلى يعقوب فارجع إلي ولدي علي. And by the patience of Abba Abdullah in his trials, just as you return Yusuf to Yaqub, return my son Ali to me, even if only for a few moments. Then Akbar enters the tent. Abi Abdullah says, Allahu Akbar. He greets his scion. They exchange a few words. Akbar says, my father, before I leave again, the sun is striking my body. I have armor that is heavy. Is there any water to quench my thirst? Abi Abdullah is no water in the tent. But Abi Abdullah says, my son Akbar, look into my mouth. If you see any moisture, take it and quench your thirst. Ali al-Akbar looks at the lips of Abi Abdullah. He says, the lips of my father were drier than my lips. Akbar rides out again, bravely fighting the enemy. Then all of a sudden Umar ibn Sa'ad says, don't fight him from up close. You have to fight him from far away, otherwise he will kill many of you. Ibn Numayr says, I aimed my bow and arrow, and I fired an arrow into the chest of Ali al-Akbar. Another arrow comes at him from all sides. Ibn Numayr says, after we fired arrows, anything we had in our hands, we chucked it on the body of Ali al-Akbar. Allah, Allah. Now Ali al-Akbar is covered in arrows. One of the enemies of Allah comes from behind, strikes the head of Ali al-Akbar. Some maqatil say, upon this strike, Ali al-Akbar falls on the head of his horse. The horse cannot see where it's going. It begins walking towards the enemy. The enemy draw their swords. They start to strike the body of Ali al-Akbar. The maqtal says, Irban, Irba. Ali al-Akbar was cut into pieces. As he falls from his horse, he calls out, Ya Abata alayka minni salam. My father, I give you my greetings. Abi Abdullah reports when he heard the call of Akbar, it is as if he became blind. He did not know where to go. He called out, Akbar, where are you? He reaches the body of Ali al-Akbar. Ali al-Akbar has one hand on his chest. Abi Abdullah says, remove your hand from your chest. Ali al-Akbar removes his hand. Abi Abdullah sees an arrow in his chest. Hussein has to do something so painful. He pushes the body of Akbar down. He pulls the arrow from the chest of Akbar. Riwayah mention Akbar started to shake. His body was shaking in the plains of Karbala. Then Akbar says, my father, I am not thirsty anymore. My grandfather Rasulullah just gave me water. And he says, oh father, my grandmother Zahra is talking to you. She is saying, we are waiting for you, Ya Waladi Hussein. Come and join us quickly. Abi Abdullah is with his son until Ali al-Akbar leaves this world. Now he has to take the body to Layla. Rawaya mentioned he would pick up the body and it would fall onto the ground. Again he would pick up the body, again it would fall onto the ground. Remember this line, it would fall back on the ground. Remember this line. Abi Abdullah tried again. He saw movement in the tent. He saw Zainab exiting the tent. He said, Zainab, as long as I am alive, never leave your tent. Abi Abdullah finally manages to bring the body back to the Mukhayyam. Layla sees the body. She says, is this my son? Cut into pieces. Abi Abdullah could not lift the body of Akbar. They say because he was so tired of picking dead bodies that whole day, that now the death of Ali al-Akbar broke him. But I say maybe it was something else. I leave you with this last line. I say maybe it was something else. Maybe when he saw the arrow in the chest and the broken ribs of Ali al-Akbar, he remembered his childhood. For in Medina there was a door. Behind the door there was a nail. Fatima al-Zahra Salamullah alayhi stood behind the door. Umar al-La'in kicked down the door. The nail pierced the chest of Fatima al-Zahra. The door crushed the ribs of Fatima al-Zahra, so much so that Fatima al-Zahra cries out, Ya Fizza. Wallah, my Muhsin has become shaheed. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين. يا حسين कहती
Thiema